Once upon a time in the ancient land of Israel, there lived a great prophet named Elisha. People knew him everywhere as a man of God who did amazing things. Elisha was so respected that many young prophets wanted to be his students. They wanted to learn from him and help him do God's work, so they gathered around him and listened to what he taught them. For some time, they met in a cave where they prayed, studied the scriptures, and discussed how they could better serve the Lord. But soon this place wasn't big enough anymore because more and more young prophets joined Elisha. So they asked him, "Our meeting place is getting too small for us. What should we do?" Elisha thought for a moment. "I know what we need to do," he said. "Let's go to the Jordan River and build a new place there." Everyone agreed. "We can cut down some logs and make a nice big room where we can all fit," they said. So they all went to the Jordan together and started working. Elisha watched as the young men chopped trees and prepared wood for their project. The sound of their axes echoed across the riverbanks as they worked hard to get everything ready for their new home. After a while, one of the young prophets raised his axe to chop down another tree, when suddenly he felt the handle of the axe become light. In his hand, the iron head flew off and fell into the river with a splash. The young man panicked and quickly ran to Elisha. "I broke someone's axe. It was borrowed." Elisha looked at the young man and asked calmly, "Where did it fall?" The young man pointed to the spot in the water where he saw the axe head sink. "Don't worry," Elisha said. "I will help you." He took a stick, walked to the edge of the water and threw it into the river right where the axe head had fallen. Then he turned to the young man and said, "Reach into the water and pull it out." The young man hesitated for a moment, then reached into the water and pulled out the axe head. It was floating in the same spot where he had seen it disappear. The young man couldn't believe his eyes. He looked at Elisha with a confused expression, unsure if he was dreaming or awake. The axe head was dry and undamaged as if it had never been in the water. He held it up for Elisha to see, but how can this be?" he asked, still confused. Elisha simply smiled and said, "Just as I told you. Take it and give it back to its owner." The young man nodded slowly, still in disbelief. He took the axe head and rushed to return it to its owner as fast as he could. From that day on, the story of the floating axe spread among the people of Israel, and everyone talked about the wonderful things Elisha had done. Elisha's students, who had witnessed this miracle firsthand, continued to tell the story for generations to come. They wanted everyone to know about the great prophet Elisha and the amazing things God had done through him. The news of the floating axe eventually reached the ears of King Ben-Hadad of Syria, who was a powerful ruler of a neighboring country. Intrigued by this tale, the king decided to test Elisha's powers, so he assembled a large army and marched towards Israel, determined to confront Elisha and see if the stories were true. Upon hearing of the impending attack, the Israelites panicked and sent messengers to Elisha for help. "What should we do?" they cried. "The Syrians are coming to destroy us." Elisha remained calm and confidently told them, "Do not be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." He reassured them that God would protect them from harm. Elisha then led the Israelites to a nearby mountain and stood before them. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet and the sky darkened with clouds. The wind grew strong and swept across the mountainside, causing the hair to stand on end and their hearts to pound in their chests. Then from the depths of the clouds, a voice boomed, "Elisha, son of Shaphat, I will open your eyes and show you what is happening to my people." Immediately, Elisha's vision cleared and he saw the Syrian army approaching below the mountain. But instead of soldiers, he saw horses, riders, and chariots. Elisha spoke again, and the voice replied, "Do not be afraid, Elisha, son of Shaphat, for I have blinded them on whom these things have come." When the Syrian army reached the foot of the mountain, they couldn't proceed any further. Elisha had prayed that God would blind the Syrians, and their eyes were now completely covered with a thick darkness, preventing them from seeing anything. They were unable to move forward or fight. The Syrians were forced to retreat, defeated and ashamed, and they never attacked the Israelites again. Elisha's courage and faith had protected his people from harm, and the memory of his victory was passed down through generations to inspire future heroes. Meanwhile, Elisha and his students returned to their normal lives. They continued to live in the area around the Jordan River and kept busy with their work. They helped people, healed the sick, and shared God's message with everyone. Although they had experienced incredible miracles, they didn't stop doing the simple tasks that were important for their daily lives. They knew that being a follower of God wasn't just about doing big, impressive things, but also about taking care of the little things in life. The disciples understood that Elisha wasn't just a miracle worker, but also an ordinary person who had strengths and weaknesses like everyone else. He needed their help and support, just as they needed his guidance. They learned that being a disciple meant working together as a community, sharing responsibilities and caring for one another. One day, as Elisha and his students were working on a project, they realized that they had used almost all the oil they had stored. They needed some more, but it was too much work for everyone to go into town and buy some. So they asked one of their younger disciples to do it. "Go to town and get us some more oil," they told him. The young man nodded and set off on his journey. Along the way he met a woman who needed help carrying heavy bags of flour. Being a kind and helpful person, he stopped to assist her. "Let me carry those bags for you," he offered, wanting to show her that even though he was a busy disciple, he wasn't too important to help others. The woman thanked him and asked, "How can I repay you for your kindness? You are very busy, aren't you?" The young man replied, "No, I don't have to hurry. I'll be back home in plenty of time." He declined her offer of payment and continued on his way. After buying the oil, the young man returned to Elisha and his students. But when they opened the jars, they found that the oil had turned into vinegar. The disciples were surprised and upset because they needed the oil for their work. They were wondering what had happened and why this had occurred. The young man explained about the woman he had helped and showed them the bag of flour that she had given him. Elisha listened to the story and then turned to the young man. "Didn't I send you to buy oil, not vinegar?" he asked gently. The young man lowered his head and apologized for his mistake. "I'm sorry, teacher. I stopped to help a woman and that's why this happened." Elisha placed a hand on the young man's shoulder and said, "Your heart is in the right place. Helping others is always good, but next time, ask God for help so that both you and the person you're helping receive a blessing." The young man nodded and promised to remember what Elisha had told him. From that day on, the young man continued to help others, but he also remembered to ask God for guidance. He learned that helping people was important, but it was equally important to do it in a way that honored God and brought blessings to everyone involved. And so the story of the young man and the floating axe served as a reminder for the followers of God to pay attention to even the smallest details in life. They learned that nothing was too insignificant for God, and that He cared about every aspect of their lives, including the little things that often went unnoticed.